Yes, guys, welcome back to the Cannon Podcast, and we are here after a stupendous victory at Old Trafford against Manchester United. 1 goal to nil. George, it wasn't an amazing performance, but it was an amazing result, an amazing day. The weather was a bit off, but Arsenal got the win, and that's what matters.
Yeah, I've never felt so disconnected from social media, just in general. For me, it was tough because I'm watching the game and I'm going online. I'm just seeing a complete 180. And, we did the instant reaction and I felt very similar. It was just a really different game to what I was experiencing from other fans, I guess. For me, going to Old Trafford, I think in the last 30 years, I think we've been there 4 or 5 times. And in each of those victories, it's been a 1-0 win. And so, unless you're willing to admit that we have a better team than the Invincibles, I struggle to understand why the result itself is not good enough. Uh, People that are highlighting the performance, I've never understood the fan sentiment on an isolated game performance in match day 37 on a title run in. Because if you're going to talk performance, let's talk performance. Arsenal have been the team in 2024 to score the most goals, have the most clean sheets, and have the least goals conceded. So if you're going to talk performance, then let's talk performance. Arsenal's been the best performing team in 2024. So I don't understand from that perspective. But look, the game itself, I think we struggled in possession, which is an understatement. I think there was a lack of urgency from the midfield. There was a lot of people that I felt like were chasing their first touch, and I don't think that we had an outlet from Kai Havertz in this game to really settle possession. So in possession, we really struggled. But then out of possession, I think the defense stood strong. I think that Manchester United, despite them having possession, had I don't even think dangerous territory, actually. I was going to say dangerous territory, but really they didn't. It wasn't for me. I think there was only 2 shots on target, generally speaking. And there was a couple times that Garnacho shown inside, but led to nothing and no real shot on target. So, again, I'm struggling because out of possession, we did our job. I didn't feel that United were ever at risk of really scoring. I think I was just more annoyed with our performance, our potential, knowing what we could do. And I do wonder, I'll throw it out there. I feel as though a lot of people's frustration yesterday wasn't exactly from the result or even the performance. I felt like a lot of it was I've experienced 8-2. I wanted 8-2 and I wanted revenge and I didn't get it.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of it comes down to fans wanting to, really rub into United, having seen them lost 4 to Crystal Palace. But we have to realise that, I guess, in big games, especially at Old Trafford, they were never going to play as open as that. They were going to play a bit more compact, and we saw it. I think United fans were actually surprised by how compact they were at times, arguably the most compact they've been all season. So I think they've seen the fact that they've got a lack of centre backs, and they've gone, look, we have to go and have to score 4 or 5, especially because we've scored 4, 5, 6 this season. And so you do that over the course of it. You give the fans an expectation that we're going to go and hummel in every single team that's poor. But I think United actually kind of surprised me. I don't think it was their worst performance of the season. I think they actually one of the more organised performances. We have to give them credit for that. And we got over the line. We had to find a moment. It was one of those games where, if you're a big team at this stage of the season and you're finding a game that you're finding a little bit difficult, more than maybe you should, you need to find a moment. And it was Havertz. Havertz understanding, seeing the Catamarans playing him on side, demanding the ball, and then again the timing of the assist was fantastic. There's still a lot to do. I watched the goal back and I was actually watching it, I was surprised by how much he had to do still. You start to beat Evans, start to play the perfect pass, and the Robin Trossard as well. It was all a fantastic moment, and it's a moment that gives also the win. So let's talk about the defense, because we've had William Saliba get the man of the match award and the generational shouts, and I think even the media now are starting to see, maybe why Arsenal fans were talking last year, this is why we're not winning the title. And now you got the player that we replaced them with sat on the bench for Crystal Palace, not even getting a single minute in Rob Holding. William Saliba's performance in his running, how impressive has he been?
It's been it's been special. It's been special. And I just wish that fans and social media and even punditry were honest about the impact of William Saliba last year. A lot of people were sitting there saying it's kind of ridiculous to make the claim that, our title race was lost the moment he got injured. But I'm sorry, if Rodri gets injured, it's going to hurt Manchester City. If John Stones is out, it's going to hurt Manchester City. In fact, it has hurt Manchester City. So I think when you're talking about a player that can get, as you said, man of the match performances at Old Trafford, at the Etihad, at Anfield, it speaks to a special player. It speaks to a player that we all know. All of us Arsenal fans love him. It's the composure, mate. For me, fun. I'm not going to say that word again. Getting clowned for it, but I think when you have a look at it, right, the biggest thing for me has been almost his ability to handle pressure is unprecedented. I've never seen a person his age be able to really do that. And it's odd because I feel like it doesn't translate to Europe quite yet. And I feel like it's a total mental thing. When he feels he belongs and he's there and he's better than you, there is no option other than winning the duel. There's no other option. And I feel like when he's in an environment that maybe he hasn't experienced before, that's the only time that he can look a little bit shaky. But in terms of, even shaky is like a loose term. I just think, like, he's a player that exudes confidence, calmness, and he allows other people to feel at ease when he's got the ball. But even when he doesn't, his presence alone, I think, is a really important, icy cool compliment to what a lot of our other defenders have. I think I would argue Ben White, he's calm, but he's a little bit nasty. Gabriel, really urgent, aggressive kind of player. David Raya, we've all talked about how proactive he is. And our left back is changing ever so constantly. So I think he's one of the few players in that back line that maybe, if you're talking from like a mental perspective, aren't hyper aggressive, isn't hyper aggressive to duels, or at least he's very controlled in the manner that he does use his aggression. And I think that balance, that mental balance, is something that really this entire backline needs, and it's why he gets those man of the match performances. Because you can have a good moment in a duel, but knowing when to use your aggression and when not to is often the key between having success in 1v1 battles, and it's why he's so imperious.
I think for me, it's the way that when he's getting pressed, and he just plays out of it, dribbles out of it regardless. I think actually, I remember Mikel Arteta saying one time that he's not a fan of his centre backs dribbling, but I think
No.
in Saliba he's a bit calmer. Because you can see that he can play out of it, and he knows his limits. Sometimes when he has to play the ball out, he'll play the ball out, but it's a very rare occasion he does that, and that's because he is probably the most composed player in our team, and we can see that why he used to be a midfielder, and it makes a lot of sense why. And
Well, he was a
looking
striker
into the rest of it,
that got,
yeah, a
like,
striker.
originally.
And
Yeah,
we saw
yeah.
it. We saw it in the game actually prior, where he burst through into the team against Bournemouth, burst through into attack and cut back, and then he scored.
Well, and you know what? I'll be honest with you. I don't. I know that Mikel said that comment, but I'll be honest with you. I don't know if I love it. Like, I want Saliba to take more onus in terms of dribbling into midfield. I feel like he look, he has to pick his moments. He's so naturally talented, and he is kind of a maverick profile in terms of a player. I think like William Saliba absolutely gives me kind of that Madrid-esque vibes. He's a Madrid player, isn't he? He's somebody that's larger than the
Just
team,
be
or at
careful
least
with it,
in
yeah.
that
Don't
mold.
be giving him no ideas. He's already got quite a few good players flying
No,
apparently.
no ideas necessarily, but I do feel like he is somebody for me that he's like those type of players that they raise the profile of the team, but they're somehow sometimes bigger than that. And you don't want to place that on a player because as Arsenal fans, we get PTSD. When that happens, they leave. Like, I
Yeah,
think that's why
yeah,
everyone's really nervous. But he is that type of player. He really is. He's going to be a reference point for defending for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And he's going to be somebody that I think is going to be the envy of every team in world football. I think the biggest thing for me that got me excited about everything is I think I finally saw chinks in the armor this season, but it doesn't derail him. And
yeah,
if anybody knows my history, I was formerly the at Saliba season before I was George VAFC. So, I mean, for me, Saliba's been probably one of my favorite players at Arsenal for a while now, if not my favorite player. Um,
yeah,
and I think the reason that I'm so excited because he finally this season showed that there's definitely times when he can let the occasion, or he hasn't experienced Porto, and I'm looking at the European experiences, and did it leak into his league play? It didn't. And he was able to shut off, and he was able to really compartmentalize those things. And I think that's what separates a good player from an elite player. Your ability to almost compartmentalize mistakes. They can happen. You have an issue in life, but look, the job needs to get done. So you put that to a side. I've messed up. I will reflect on that later. Let me play the occasion and the issue, the argument at hand. Let me not let that weigh in. And his ability to just be so present minded, I think, is what allows for that calmness, the composure. He doesn't rely or really he doesn't let his mind wander on past mistakes. He's there, he's made it, he moves on, and
Yeah.
it's such an important feature for a defender.
Yeah, he's very good at not dwelling. I love the fact he loves Arsenal. You
Yeah,
could just see the way he celebrates every goal. He goes crazy, and it's bad because you got this big 6'4" centre back. You think he's gonna be scary, but he's actually like a friendly little giant at times. You
mate,
know,
he's a fan
and
too.
he's,
Like you
yeah,
see
he's a
you see
massive
the
fan.
cuts, you see the cuts, and the way he celebrates on the pitch.
Yeah,
he's
he's got a very warm energy, and I've witnessed it in person. You know,
mm,
when you walk past, when we talk about when I was in the preseason tour last year, and the players walk past you. Some players had a bit of a colder energy, which is fair. But Saliba's very warm. He's very like he'll approach you or say hello to you, and I think
mm.
he's just a very very warm-hearted person.
Yeah, he's brilliant. And look, it's brilliant to have him. We're gonna have the nervous conversations next year. I know because of the 2 year part of the contract, and it's we're gonna recycle the entire Bukayo Saka Saliba question is gonna come back again. But I think as long as the team is succeeding, these players will succeed, and these players will enjoy that success, and they buy into that. And he is an Arsenal fan. People forget that. He is somebody that from young has a particular affinity with the club. And the only reason I say that is because I really don't think, for as much as we praise the development of Saliba, I don't think the beginning of his Arsenal journey he stays if he's not as much of a fan as what
Yeah,
people think. I think
yeah,
regardless, there was a lot of agents, there was a lot of people in his ear. It was definitely an icy situation. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't ideal. And I
yeah,
think for him to return to this level, mate, how many people do you know that legitimately every team they're in, they make the team better? How many central center backs or even center backs in general do that in world football right now? When he went to Marseille, evidently better. Saint Etienne, better. Even last season, you can't say that Arsenal weren't better with Saliba. They were absolutely incredibly good with Saliba. We saw the
yeah.
effect, and then this season, same thing. So I really struggle to find how many. And this guy is like very young. He's very young. He's been able to do that and have that impact on a first team with mature adults this young. It's scary, mate. It's scary in terms of potential.
It's a it's a thing that you're right because he's a level raiser, and that's a very important aspect. And we compared him. We've not compared him, but a lot of people compared him to Virgil van Dijk.
Hmm.
And that aspect when he signed for Liverpool, when he transformed them from a top four fighting team to a title fighting team, you could Saliba's impact in Marseille, getting them into the Champions League. I think they got second place in the year he was there. And then the impact he has had at Arsenal as well, going into his first ever season in the Premier League and helping his team fight for a title. 75% win rate over 2 years in the Premier League. 75%.
Yeah.
Like he's a very abnormal player. Because how many players come into a league straight away for the first ever time with all the hype as well? Because Arsenal fans have
Hmm.
hyped Saliba to the max, and then go and deliver straight away. Because there was a part of Mikel Arteta that didn't fancy him and he wanted to send him out on loan, but now he's an integral part that Mikel Arteta. I think he's the only player maybe to start every game for Arsenal this season.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't look for me. I never felt that the relationship was as gone as what was portrayed on social media. But at the same token, I never dismissed fans that were concerned with the relationship between Mikel and Saliba, and he's an example, I think, of look. It can happen that the loans don't mean that you're out, but I don't think that's a pattern. I think Saliba very much is an outlier in the sense that he went out on loan 2 times and then became a central, integral, title winning, title challenging pillar. I mean, how many examples of that in the past have happened, if any? Has that ever been done in football before where you've gone out on 2 loans consecutively and then you've come back into the team to be so important that you're a pillar to a title challenge 2 years
Yeah,
in a row? I'm
he
not
didn't
sure.
even play before. That was the thing. Mikel didn't play him a single time, so it
Yep.
wasn't like he was kind of in the squad. He wasn't even involved.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it's just so he is an abnormal player for abnormal stats for an abnormally good level, and he's all ours. And so it's brilliant, it's amazing, um, and I just think I have a lot of years to enjoy him. That's what I'm excited about. Like this is just the start, which is scary.
Yeah, a lot of years to enjoy Saliba, but also this Arsenal side. Because I think there was an interview I watched yesterday. It was actually on AFTV, and it talked about Arsenal being back. Now, the person that was speaking about it, he hasn't always been a fan of Mikel Arteta, but he talked about the fact that he sees Arsenal as we're back now. Taking the title to the final day of the season, competing with arguably the best side we've ever seen in Premier League history against the best manager we've probably seen ever, and we're toe to toe. We're going to the final day. That is Arsenal back. in the sense of we are now competitive and it's official. When you take a title charge to the final day of the season, you go and get your most ever points, or sorry, your most ever wins, 27 wins over the Invincibles. And Mikel Arteta said that's not progress, that's history. So I think the question then becomes this season, because our fate is not in our hands right now. It's in the hands of Tottenham and West Ham and Man City. and it's a bit of a doomsday scenario, but it is what it is. We can't do much more right now. Our form in 2024 has been very, very good. 2 games in which we dropped points, and that's Man City at the Etihad and the game against Aston Villa, a team that's fighting for top 4. So regardless of, I guess, what happens in these next 2 games, whether this time next week we're here celebrating a title or we're talking about next season,
it's mad.
Has this season been a success?
It's mad when you think about it. Like next week, we'll know.
We are potentially one game away from a Premier League title. One game away.
And I have a lot to say on the run-in, and I want to spark some debate. I want to be a little bit controversial because I'm going to call out Standard FC. It's the same people that spout the stupid rhetoric, and I'm going to be that hard because there's an entitlement that I see in this fan base right now, and there's an active effort to remove context. And I mean, it's annoying. It's annoying to take the Premier League title to the last game of the season, which, by the way, doesn't happen. You know how we always say you want a title challenge to go to the last game of the season? Mate, go back in the last 25 years. How many times has that actually happened? I can count. It's less than 10, less than 5 even. So it's at like a 20% time when that even happens. So let's ignore how ridiculous of a statement that even is. But okay, let's accept it that we've done it. We're there. We're now in the last game of the season. And we're sitting there and we're contemplating how 5 months ago we lost particular games that we felt like we could have won. Like every team is going to do that. And from both sides, you have to make history to beat each other. I don't think that we're understanding that. And I'm glad that Mikel said the history comment. I've said it from a Manchester City perspective, but I've also said it in past pods that if Arsenal were to win the title, they're going to make history. They're going to make the most wins that they've had. They'll just come shy of their points total, because I think the Invincibles were 91, I believe, if I'm correct. So it's 2 points off what they did. But, I think from a clean sheet perspective, it was definitely more. From a total wins perspective, it was more. Definitely from a goals perspective, it's the most goals that we've scored. So, I mean, there's really a debate in terms of the actual quality of the team. And are we saying 2 points makes a real difference? And that's what I don't understand. So I guess for me, I'm really struggling as a fan, as maybe even an older fan. Is it a generation thing? Am I being ageist? I've been able to experience success. Is that why I'm able to sit there and get this perspective, as opposed to maybe fans that have not seen the success? Because there's just an entitlement that I see that it comes down to just win the trophy, mate, or else nobody cares. That's the comment that I think I'm seeing. But it does matter, because if you don't have these things in place, then your sustained success won't be there. The reason City are there every year on year on year is not because they just buy the best players and football gets won on paper. That's not the case. They're there because of their process, their project. The way that they've been able to have repetitive, sustained success is due to the infrastructure and the pain that they made at the beginning. Now, they've been able to fast track things because they've had money to help them get there quicker. Sure, that's been the case. But it's not just that, mate. They've got success on their academy levels. Their culture of winning seeps into everything they do. And so for me, I'm very excited about this Arsenal squad doing that. Every year has been progression. And it's very hard for me to sit there with a straight face and accept people saying that we've had the most wins in our Premier League era and to say that it's a failure. I really struggle with that statement.
I think that those words, the word failure and the word bottle job, you just talked about the Invincibles. I just checked myself right now. The point was 90. So if
90.
we win against Everton, we'd go 1 point behind the Invincibles over the course of a 38-game season. And for a league that's probably more competitive, not probably, it is more competitive when it was in 03-04. There was no Pep Guardiola. There was no Jurgen Klopp. There was no tactical managers that are managing teams even that getting relegated. The likes of Luton and even Burnley have tactical managers that play a certain way that wasn't the case back in 03-04. And we're 1 point off the Invincible side potentially, with more wins, more goals scored. And I think they had a better defense in terms of goals conceded, with 18 clean sheets in 37 games. You can't look at that and tell me that's not progress. And that's why Mikel Arteta said that's not progress, it's history. And he's got a point. And it goes to those fans that still somehow sit there and question if Arteta's the guy. How can you sit there and question if Arteta's the guy after all those things? Is it really that? Do you really want that, piece of silver that badly? There's one game, there's Tottenham winning on Tuesday change your entire perspective on Mikel Arteta because Ange got a result. It doesn't make sense. And actually, there was a video I think Alex did recently, talked about I'm okay with finishing second, and he talked about that the title was a symbol of success. It means something. It shows all you've done over the years, the levels of consistency, and it's meaningless on its own. And that's the whole point. Is we've got that level now, and for me it's a guarantee. Whether it's this year, next year, or the year after, we will be celebrating major honours very soon. And so when I look at it that way, I'm very excited, and I'm very excited potentially for next week, because next Sunday, you just never know. And because it is going to go to the final day of the season, heartbreakingly, they're going to have two trophies at both grounds. They're going to have the trophy stuff ready as well. Because I saw it with Liverpool all the years ago.
Yeah,
where they had everything at place. So look, we'll see what happens. I spoke to when I did work with Arsenal, I spoke to someone behind the scenes, and he was like, we have to prepare still. Even as people that do the social media, we have to prepare for a potential title in terms of the graphics and in terms of what happens after.
you have
So
to.
look, we're less than a week away potentially, and we'll find out. No matter what happens, we're gonna find out in less than a week. We'll know exactly what happens and what we're talking about in terms of the
Can I
future.
ask you a quick
and how
question?
it changes.
I know it's difficult because you don't really carry that perspective, but I don't want to dismiss fans that have an alternate opinion, and I just feel like,
Of course not.
and you shouldn't dismiss them. It's not right. I mean, no opinion's better than the other. The thing that I just struggle with, I guess, is because you are younger than me, and you don't carry that perspective, but you must be around people that do. You know, in terms of like this need for a title now, is this just social media presence that we need success now? Is this generation? Is like what do you think the reason is to because it's not even just those fans, the punditry in this country, well, in your country, they do it as well. You're
Yeah,
either a
yeah,
bottle job or you're the best thing that has ever happened to the Premier League. There's no in between. And I don't know. I was around before, and they certainly weren't talking about Manchester United bottle jobs when we went invincible. That wasn't the storyline. It wasn't. It was, wow, this invincible team did the impossible, and they went invincible. But that's what it took to beat Sir Alex Ferguson. That was the narrative that was going on, and they gave respect to title challengers. Right now, I'm just seeing across the board, and I don't know if is it a social media perspective in terms of our big social media channels that have thrived this almost banter era in terms of I need to clown you, and has it gone too far? Like, I'm really struggling as a fan because, mate, whether we lose or whether we win, I'm sitting there saying this has been one of the best title races that I've seen in years. And Liverpool themselves doing what they've been able to do, and Klopp doing what he could have done this season. No one put him there. No one put him there at the start of the season, and they went deep. It wasn't as though, look, they were only officially out of the title race as of this weekend. Okay, maybe the last week or two when they had tough results in the league, everyone accepted it was done. But we weren't talking about a Liverpool falling away in February, March. They fell away in late April, early May. Like, so I'm really struggling with the respect that people give towards success. And I've never understood. I've never understood where this mentality got to, where you have to be a bottle job or you're the best thing since sliced bread. And by the way, that only happens to one team in every 38 game season. And I've never seen that perspective before.
I feel like the standard that we've not the standard, but the way that Mikel Arteta has been treated in the media specifically, it's been a bit unfair. I'm not talking about this season. It's actually going back to 2020, 21, 22.
Yeah.
When we finished fifth and missed out on top four to Conte Spurs. And Gary Neville and there's that famous clip of Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher talking about after our defeat to Newcastle. That's it. As in, that is the ceiling.
It's the best that
that
this
is the
will ever
best.
get.
That was the best chance they're ever going to get. But you look at Spurs right now in fifth, behind fourth place Aston Villa, who've never qualified for the Champions League in God knows how long. And I don't hear the same. People go, "Oh, next year they'll go again. Next year they'll sign some players." But for Arsenal, it always has felt like we've got some sort of spending cap, that we've got a transfer ban, and that we can't progress. And even last year, after fighting for a title when no one expected it, going, was it 82 or 84 points? Still, people question. They questioned if Arsenal could go. Was it a one-off season? Would they go again? Are we Pochettino's Spurs? I even heard someone say, "Are we Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's Man United?" And so it's weird. I don't know if maybe it's the media that they don't really rate Mikel Arteta as much as we do as Arsenal fans, or they don't see it, but they're seeing it now, and you can see it now. I don't think anyone doubts it now. And even his biggest, protagonist, and people that have doubted him the most, in Gary Neville, even he's on his side now. Even he's respecting Mikel Arteta. So it's a nice sign. It's a good sign as well. But I think in terms of the titles and in terms of my era of fans, it's the flex, it's the show off. It's to go, look, my team is this and your team is that. And especially for Arsenal fans that, of my era and younger and slightly older, they've gone through a lot of pain. And we had to go to school after 8-2. We had to go to school after 6-0. We had to go to school seeing United win a title.
But I think
Chelsea
that's
win the Champions
key.
League.
Like it's the childhood trauma. And
It is.
it's
It is. We don't forget. I don't forget.
Well, that's the problem. And look, and again, I don't want to dismiss it because look, I went through maybe a different issue. I mean, maybe it wasn't playground type of banter.
Recess.
Like it was a recess. Like, sure, I got clowned at the university, and I got
Yeah,
clowned.
buddies come up to you, give me your lunch money.
Well, Arsenal better win, or else shut your mouth, kind of thing. It's just. Yeah, I don't know, but mate, I want to be fair. If Arsenal aren't the ones that are competing, I would say the same if it was Liverpool, if it was United. This whole idea of win and that's it, for me, it's incredibly short-sighted. I mean, success is a road, and you're never given success, anybody, and it's hard work, and I think that's something that everybody can relate to in life, broadly speaking. Nothing is given to you. I mean, mate, look at yourself. Or look at myself. Like I look back at all my life and all my successes, and it wasn't built off that day. I didn't get successful on that day because I got that award. I got successful because of years of hard work. And, I'm sure that's going to be the case for yourself, for anybody that's listening to the pod. And I find it important because I feel like I'm fighting for the integrity of the quote unquote process. And this is going to get clowned from all those typical standard FCs, but even them, their process to get to that point and be successful came off the back of months, years of them building a reputation for people to enjoy that kind of content. And so I think that you need to be able to respect the journey for every single club. And look, we don't have to sit there and say, okay, so are you saying if you fail in March, it's still okay because of the journey? No. I mean, there needs to be some balance here. But if you're talking about Arsenal, to bring it back to Arsenal, having the most wins in their Premier League history, factually, that's history. That's a success. That shouldn't be a ridiculous take to have. There shouldn't be pushback that you make history in the Premier League for your most wins and then that be categorized as failure.
Uh-huh.
You can maybe not win. That's not failure. And I'm sorry, like that's just not how I was raised. Like my dad didn't say if you don't win the trophy and you don't get this, you're a failure, son. Like that's not what I did, and that's not what I valued either. So maybe it's a difference to me, and I'm just happy that Arsenal are back to where they should be, where this is a conversation, This is a debate, and that's the key.
I mean, that's the key part. Is Arsenal are back where they should be, fighting for titles. Going to Old Trafford on the second last game of the season and getting a win. Winning 5 games in a row in the running where, after the defeat against Aston Villa, it was over. Title's over. We can't do it anymore. We've bounced back and we showed character, but more importantly, cast your eyes back to the late days under Arsene Wenger. I remember myself more than ever, sitting there 4th, 5th, 3rd, even 2nd at times, but not knowing that we're not going to win the title every single year. That you might have a few wins and you might threaten to do it, but you're never going to actually do it. And that lack of ambition, which is what, it killed a lot of fans. And they just said, look, can we compete again? Can we go up against Man City and compete? Liverpool and compete? And we have competed now. And, winning is not in our hands right now. Winning is in the hands of Spurs. So let's talk about Spurs. Versus City on Tuesday. So I don't know if it comes out on the day or day after. But, George, do you think Ange has something for us, mate?
It's only, I mean, he's come out with quotes, and like, to be fair, I rate it, mate. Like, I mean, we can banter, we can have fun about talking about, Spurs. The irony is, mate, out of all their results, it would be so Spursy for them to win. Just in isolation, they've lost something like the last four, right? They won
Yeah,
against
the
Burnley,
four
but
out of
before that,
yeah,
yeah, they lost
4 out of
four in a
5
row.
defeats.
Yeah, and how Spursy would it be to just do that, and then maybe like tie against Sheffield or something like that? Like, it would be so them in every context. But for us, look, I think that factually, let's speak facts right now. Um, Pep has never won. That's the Spurs Stadium. Like, that's across cups. He's not won there before. They are one of the teams that give Pep teams the most trouble. It's because they're so clinical in transition when they can be, and they are. And they're a threat on the counter. If you were to build up a team, by the way, if you were to select a team in the league in order to face Manchester City to down points, Spurs would be in your top three, would it not? In terms of asking if you could select a team. Now, could you select a ground even? Uh, yeah, White Hart Lane is a ground that Pep has really struggled in. And it's not just been the league, it's been across cup competitions as well. So, I mean, this idea, could there be a chance? Of course, there could be a chance. In fact, I would argue it's actually lunacy to suggest that there's no chance. This acceptance, this apathy that there's no chance. You're actually going against every record in that fixture, every head to head in that fixture. Now, is that a guarantee, George? Are you then guaranteeing success? No, I'm not. I mean, anything can happen in football right now. We're in the last game of the season. We've talked about how poor Arsenal. We'll probably get back to that at the end of the pod, because I actually don't think we've gone into the game quite as much. But, in terms of how poor we were against Manchester United, we saw the result go our way. And, I think Manchester City, for me, if you were talking about performances, they didn't deserve points at Forest, but they got there. And that's all that matters at this point in the season. So football will be football. You respect your ideals, you're going to get what you deserve. But I mean, I don't think it's as much of a given as people think. Spurs, for me, are probably one of the few teams and White Hart Lane in general is one of the few grounds that I would select in the league, that if somebody could do something against City, it would be that ground with that team. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's currently City are on a 21 match unbeaten run, which is I think Pep's longest ever. Right,
Mm-hmm.
no defeats since match day 16 of the Premier League. I feel like at one point, just by the law of averages and looking at the City side,
But we don't even need
that
a defeat.
maybe, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Maybe just dropping a point,
He can
maybe just
still be
getting a
unbeaten,
draw.
mate. Carry his record, no
Exactly.
problem.
Yeah, you can continue your unbeaten record to 23, but a draw is all we need, and that's the beauty. I know they've closed the goal difference down quite a lot, so that is to say. But with the draw, that wouldn't be the case anymore. And then we go to the final day of the season against West Ham, where we might have the title in our hands and not their hands. So it would be, you're right, very Spursy, because their fans and their logic going into this game is, if we're gonna have a parade after where Arsenal can't win the league, right? That's what they want, and they would have liked it if we had dropped points against Old Trafford, drop it at Old Trafford, and then they go and lose this game on purpose, and the title was over. And there was even Spurs fans saying on camera, by the way, that we would do a pitch invasion
But
after
mate, don't you think,
Arsenal don't
isn't
win a
this a,
title. That's
isn't this
that's
an
how
ex-
obsessed they are right now as a fan
mate,
base.
isn't this an example of banter going too far? Like, can't we
Yeah,
call it out? Like, that is insane to me. Any fan base, by the way, that is saying that, mate, it's not even just Spurs fans. Like, I'm seeing like rivals legitimately being able to try to say, like, I'm gonna laugh at Arsenal for not winning it. Mate, we've taken it to the last day. What are you saying? Are you really gonna sit there and you would rather your team lose, and you would not progress, your club not progress, because your rivals don't get success that they want? That is insane to me. And like, we can joke and we can laugh about it, but this is an example of banter going too far. And we've allowed banter to get this far. We entertain it. Like, and people don't clown what is very clownish behavior. Like, get your pants up. Come on. And to quote some other people, like, stop shaking your bum for other teams. Okay. When you want success for your club. I'm sorry, that shouldn't be an insane take to have, that you want to sit there and win every game, even if it doesn't hand Arsenal the title. By the way, we always use this as banter, and I might do it tongue in cheek myself to fans that are giving me a tough time. But Arsenal will have won the title because of their entire league campaign, not because Spurs decided to be good for a match on match day 37. That's not the reason.
hmm
You know, uh,
yeah.
Arsenal won the title because, again, they scored the most goals in 2024. They conceded the least goals, and they had the most clean sheets in 2024 of any team. So those are all irrefutable facts. So if you're going to talk about handing the title, no, Arsenal took it. Arsenal took it, and they had to beat a Manchester City run that was historic. That's the reason that someone loses or wins a title, not because of Spurs. So I don't get it, mate. It is weak beta male mentality. Like
Yeah.
I wish, because I saw the same thing that you saw, and I was shocked. I was, because there was people supporting it that weren't Spurs fans. That for me is
Oh no,
what
listen. I
that
know Spurs
shocked me.
fans. There was those Spurs fans were in the comments and they were going, "Yes, I agree." So it's not just a one-off opinion, by the way.
No,
It is a general consensus from Spurs fans that go to games. By the way, they actually these people they'll be in the ground and they actually have the idea of having a pitch invasion and they can't do it
Ange
now
said
because
it too. Did you catch his
yeah,
quotes?
yeah, yeah, it's crazy. What about Spurs and City?
Not Spurs and
What was the
City,
quote?
but generally in the post match, he's just like, I don't social media. He goes, I don't understand social media. Like I don't understand fans that want their team to lose. We will be
Yeah,
fully concentrated on trying to progress. And I'm like, look, that's not even a PR line. It's just facts. It's the mentality you
you have
need to
to, you have to,
succeed.
you have to. It's a
Yeah.
it's a dooms. It's one of those scenarios that you get put forward as like a would you rather, and it's always like a joke of, oh, would you rather have Spurs in the Champions League or us in the Premier League? We're now in a situation where if Spurs want to win and try to qualify for the Champions League, they have to win. It all depends on the result against Villa as well. And if Villa will lose to Liverpool, that will play a massive part. But Champions League football's on the line. But also for Arsenal's sake, if they do lose or if they do win, sorry, great for them, great for Arsenal. Because that will be most likely a Premier League title in our bank, and they would have won it for us. Having 20 years, 20 years ago, the ground we won it at was at Spurs. So, look, the script writers have written something up. The fact that we had to play United, and that was City's biggest rivals, and we got past them, and
Wasn't
now
this
they
the
have to play
exact
against
script
Spurs.
in 0102?
Yeah,
Am
and we
I
had Everton
am
in the
I
final
off?
day of the season, I think.
Yeah, but it was against Everton too, was it not? Where we had played
Yeah, at home.
United before? Yeah. So
Yeah, so I don't know, man. Let's not look at history right now. We try to make history as it is. So it's not ever gonna. It's always gonna be a surprise. I wouldn't be surprised if something really crazy happened. That even if Spurs lose this game and somehow West Ham do something, or something happens, and it's just the point is it's just the point. That's all we need right now. Depending on how
yeah,
much if City do beat Spurs and the goal difference is just a point.
absolutely. And look, at the end of the day, I feel like we've been able to break down the run in enough. One thing that we haven't been able to do for a majority of the pod quite yet is actually get into the details of the game quite yet.
Yeah,
I
we've
wanted to
been trying
circle
to avoid
back.
that.
I wanted to circle back, and it was good because we got all the positivity out. So maybe people can understand the constructive criticism that'll go in the next little
No,
bit.
listen, I think people want it. Looking at the instant reaction yesterday in the comments,
Yeah,
there was a lot of angry Arsenal fans talking about the performance. So we'll break it down. Let's go for it.
yeah. I mean, look, for me, a couple of talking points. I think Kai Havertz, for me, despite the assist, which is very, very good play, we couldn't get out, mate. Like, we didn't have a platform to get out, and it wasn't just him, but I felt like the midfield as well, collectively extremely poor. Thomas Partey had one of his worst games that I think I've seen in the run-in. And I think that Martin Odegaard was very unsuccessful in contact. He wasn't somebody that was giving us a platform to enact our possession game. And I think Declan Rice did slightly better in terms of being able to carry into the final third at moments. But again, even himself, I don't think that he had a typical Declan Rice game. Found him quite peripheral. And I think that when you had to look at it, look, Eric Ten Hag had one thing in mind: 3DM midfield set up to be very flat to stop central progression. So there was going to be an issue in terms of us accessing those areas. We definitely tried to go around them. I didn't feel like we went over the top of United enough. And I don't think we did it successfully, because every time we did go long, it was clearly a play. I thought Raya had a good game, but he was going long and it was unsuccessful quite a bit. And I think part of the frustration for me is the moments that we would show urgency in the match, the moments that we would show a little bit of, um, you know, uh, directness, aggressiveness in our passing and possession, we would cut through United like a hot knife through butter. And um, so the frustrating part for me is I almost felt like we played to their level. That was the annoyance for me in yesterday's game. Um, but from a defensive perspective, by the way, I thought we were brilliant again, and people don't want to hear it. But I mean, the work that this team does out of possession, you can't go unnoticed. Look at Trossard, for example. He's there for the moment. I think he struggled in possession. The whole left-hand side really didn't knit many things together. But again, out of possession, he was so key in terms of being able to get back and early and narrow into our press. He's what stops those entry passes for any of the United players, including Kobe Mainu, to really dictate anything in the final third. And I thought Ahmad had a really good game for United, probably one of the best players on the pitch in general. And a big reason that we were able to stop that was how quick we snapped back into structure. And Ahmad, for me, like he had dangerous moments, but once the play got to the right, I got calm because it seemed like their possession was stale, and then they would come inside and then they would lose the ball. They would make a poor decision themselves, and so there was never any worry about them penetrating. What did you
Yeah.
make of maybe Ten Hag being so fearful? Mate, 3 DMs. I know he's got a lot of injuries, but my God, there was not a very proactive approach there.
No,
What
no,
did you
no
make? What
proactive
did you
approach.
make of that?
I get it because you've just lost 4-0 to Crystal Palace,
Yeah,
and you're tasked with facing the team that has the second most goals in the league, the most goals scored in 2024, and has a recent history of scoring 5 and 6. So you're scared. You're scared. That's what it is. That's what it was, fear, and it was respect. Of course, it was respect. You have to respect Arsenal, but I also think Arsenal respected Man United. Maybe a bit too much, but we respected them. And it's how Mikel Arteta plays against United often is where he's willing to actually give them the ball. We saw it actually at the Emirates as well early in the season. We gave them the ball very often, and we kind of said, "Okay, look, you have the ball in your half. Let's see what you do." This was a bit different. We weren't pressing as much. It was definitely a bit lackluster in terms of physicality and intensity as well. But we know when you've got a defense as good as Arsenal's, and we're at the stage now where you can see we're kind of fizzling out because we're at game week 37 and the players are a bit tired, and that's fair enough. We have that backbone to rely upon, that insurance policy to go, you know what, the defense, we can hold on, and you can have the ball, but you're not going to break us down. And I saw a stat that in terms of second half XG, United only had like what 0.17 or 19. I think their expected goals on target, which is their post shot XG, was like 0.07.
mm-hmm.
So even when they had a shot, it wasn't of a high quality because Arsenal were very good at just blocking the shot, getting in the way, making it difficult, and those little things just come into play. And it was a resilient performance, professional performance. And United fans, they can talk about Arsenal not being at their best, but as an Arsenal fan, do you know the amount of times that I've seen Arsenal play Man United over the years? And those guys have
At our
put in some
best, by the way.
jammy performances, and they've got victories. Not even just under Arteta and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I'm going back to the Wenger and Fergie
Yeah,
days.
2017.
De Gea 2017 and Mourinho. Like I've seen that time and time again. So look, if we had to survive one time and get over the line, and it's for a title, then I'm going to take it as it
Were
is
you
what it is.
worried? Like genuine? Like, look, okay, I don't want to be disingenuous. Like, there were times that I'm sitting there nervous watching the game, but like, were you genuinely ever worried about them breaching the goal?
I think, look, when the score's at 1-0, you're always scared, especially at this part of the season where you've seen in the past that things can happen. Things can surprise you. A player might bang it out of nowhere. You look at United's game against, was it Liverpool, where Liverpool dominated the first half, everything's on point, and then Fernandes just chips it from the halfway line.
You just spoke of it
They have
though.
it.
They had the
Yeah,
moments players in those games. I
yeah.
sat there.
They didn't
I
have those
sat there.
players.
They didn't. I sat there looking at the pitch, and I'm like, look, I don't want to be disingenuous. Okay, there were transitions, and I'm like, okay, let's defend well. But then, mate, once we snapped back into position, I was looking
Yeah,
across that United team, and I'm like, who's going to give them a moment? No Rashford,
it was.
no Bruno, Anthony. Really? That's
Yeah,
the
it was
solution?
only really a moment, innit? It's when they break through. They had a few occasions where Garnacho broke through, Ahmad broke through. You're going, oh, maybe, but within a second, everyone snaps back. And within a second, even that moment where I think Ahmad was it Garnacho beat Ben White and
Yeah,
Saka, and then
on the inside. Yeah,
Saliba's
yeah.
just there to cut him off, and you guys just cut him off. So yeah, look, I think over the course of this season, as Arsenal fans, we just start to learn to trust the defense again. And it's look, Arsenal fans and defenses have massive trust issues because for many years we didn't have that defense, and it was Mustafi, and it was Koscielny at times, and it was someone in there that could make a mistake or get bullied or something might go wrong. But these centre backs are different. This defense is different, and I think that's what Arsenal fans are starting to learn game by game. This is the Arsenal heritage. This is the Arsenal way. Actually, winning 1-0, we made it famous. 1-0 to the Arsenal. So Mikel Arteta's kind of brought us back to the roots. And we talk about the Wenger days, but maybe a bit more in terms of George Graham
Well, I mean, he's trying to blend a little bit of both. Like I think he
and
is
a bit of
always
Mikel
going to
Arteta,
be.
of course.
Well, yeah, I think he's going to always be defense first as a mentality. I just think the way that he's he's grown up. He's a very unique player. If you're really going to look back at his history, by going up in La Masia to then really do his formative years in Scotland, and then to go to PSG as well. Like, I mean, it was those are very physical leagues. You know, even back then, League One was still very physical. So he had a really interesting development path. You know, his ideas about football from a kid were maybe uh, ingrained with the Cruyff era, but then his environment made him appreciate the rough and tumble, the dirty. And I think it's what makes him such a unique manager. Um, I want to end on this managerial point because it boggles my mind that Eric Ten Hag, who is coach of a team and a club, by the way, that you could say has inarguably a bigger stature than Arsenal in Manchester United. I've never seen a manager act the way that he is, so delusional and so able to really fumble these results. Mate, why is no one talking about the Manchester United fumble of Champions League football? Is that being just completely ignored? They were in a position to be there clear, despite being a really horrific team, and we all agree it was a horrific team, but it was a joke that people were just saying, wow, to finish above this Manchester United, you must be bad. Mate, look at their record in the last 10, 12 games. It's horrific. And why is there not enough criticism based on that? If we're talking about development pathways, to sit there and be in a position to be in fourth for that long and then to drop out to basically potentially be in sixth, seventh at this point is crazy to me. It's crazy that that's not getting the airtime that deserves. And I mean, look, he probably won't be there in the position very long. I mean, we all know that Ineos are probably going to be looking to move him on very, very soon. But I just wonder, why is the framing not how horrible Eric Ten Hag was? And I can't help but look at what Mikel Arteta suffered through, and that wasn't
Yeah, I
the
think a lot of
same
it is that.
grace.
A lot of it is that. A lot of it is what Mikel Arteta went through. And as Arsenal fans, we're to hear the same conversations at the end of every single season. There will still be an element this season. If we don't get over the line and we fall short because, Spurs and West Ham can't get a result, fans will still say, oh, with this next year, will it go again? I think maybe less this year because of the fact we've gone back-to-back years. But there's still going to be an element of doubt. But for Ten Hag, I think a lot of United fans, speaking to them, they have given up, But there's also a few United fans reluctant to say that he might be there at the start of next season. So, as an Arsenal fan, I'm just sitting there going, look, I'll take it, I'll take you being there because I need you to be there. And if you are there, the future Man United is going to be a little bit more dull, a bit more predictable. With Ten Hag, we kind of know what we're getting. This is Eric Ten Hag as a manager, which is it's a bit surprising considering his first year. But at the same time, I think looking at the standard of Mikel Arteta set, everyone compares him to Mikel Arteta now. Anytime a manager comes in, it's the Mikel Arteta process. How was Mikel Arteta doing in his first year? How was Mikel Arteta doing in the second year? And that's mad because we haven't got a title yet. Without a title, he's become a standard. So give us that first title and the conversations will become even better.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think on the game, the one thing that I will say is you can't you can't sit there and critique the team for winning ugly when that has been a critique of yours in the last 4 or 5 years as to why we don't win titles. And this idea about winning ugly is something that I refuse to have against any club, especially Arsenal. If there's one club, okay, that is known for playing beautiful football, Bayern, Ajax, and us. Don't come at me with tags that we don't play beautiful football. Don't. We made generations of fans and football icons based on the type of football we played. But guess what? That type of football didn't lead to the most successful trophies for us. In our period of the most beautiful football, we struggle to win. We struggle to really get over the line. So if Arsenal has become street smart and learnt to win ugly, watch out for the rest of the teams. I'm not going to sit there and apologize as an Arsenal fan for showing different faces and different ways to win. I'm not going to sit there and do that. And I'm especially not going to do that on a season that Arsenal have given me beautiful football. The most 5-0 win score lines, by the way, approaching a record. If we're able to do it against Everton, by the way, we'll have tied the record, I think, for the Centurion cities for have done the most 5-0 score lines in a season. So don't tell me that Arsenal haven't played beautiful. We have. But if we had to win ugly, and in order to get a result at Old Trafford, a ground, by the way, that we've never had in the last 30 years, more than a 2-goal margin win, I'm sorry. I'll take that. I'll take that every day of the week. Give me another one on Everton, by the way, if it means a title. I don't care. Stop changing your narrative about what's beautiful and what you need for success just so that you can be right. Don't do that.
George, Bukayo Saka, Player of the Year, Premier League, not nominated. Alongside Rodri, so it's not the only thing that we missed out on. But
It's
Rodri
insane.
and Saka, not nominated. Why has Bukayo not been nominated?
It is one of life's biggest mysteries. Like, and you know what? I think it comes down to, mate, our disingenuous description of his season. There's even a lot of Arsenal fans that have tried to frame it that he's been average or that he ghosts. And I'm sitting there and I'm just saying, I can't take you seriously. I really can't take you seriously. Have a look at what Bukayo Saka has done, by the way, not just for Arsenal, in comparison to other wingers that you'd like to prop him ahead of, which in terms of Cole Palmer and in terms of Phil Foden. Have a look at what his metrics achieve, by the way. He's still able to achieve the similar metrics to both of those players, to many of the players in the player of the season category, right? While doing 3 times the amount of defensive work as all of them. And he is just an incredibly complete player. And I've always felt that he's been suffering from voters fatigue. Like he's been so brilliant for so long that people just accept that he's brilliant, and then you want to add something else to it. So if you're already brilliant, how much more can you go in terms of potential? Not much. And when you don't get that because you've seen such a jump so consistently, as a fan, you say, well, I haven't seen the same jump that you made last year. So therefore you're bad or you're average or you're poor. And you're like, well, hold on, mate. He did the jump from world class to elite. There's not really much more that you could do. You can go from elite to generational. And that is something that you only can say and make comments on after years and seasons of work. And even then you're going to start to look at the history, and even then it's a debate. So I'm really struggling to understand the discourse around Bukayo Saka. I want to have a conversation if you're okay with it, and I'm going to be controversial. I don't want to hide it. I do think that there's a lot of discrimination bias that Bukayo Saka suffers through, and I don't want to be political. I sent something out on X, sorry, not Twitter. And I talked about this. I think that there's a lot of discrimination bias that Bukayo Saka goes through because it's not just about performance. If it was performance, by the way, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Period. End of story. It just simply wouldn't be a case. He's too brilliant. He's too consistent, and he's too much of a good boy. He's humble. He's every mentor's dream. Okay, or every mentee's dream, rather. He doesn't drink. He doesn't have scandal. I'm sorry, just because he reads his Bible and he's just brilliant constantly, that you got to sit there and make absolute drivel about his ability, his ability in the context of where his potential is. And then lastly, by the way, this whole limping narrative, mate, like I want to get into it. Like it's actually ridiculous the amount of treatment that he gets. He has literal holes in his shin that don't get fouled and don't get called for a card. And we're sitting there saying, just get up, stop lipping. Like, what are we doing? And I'm sorry, and I'm not going to beat around the bush. Is it because it's a young black man that is getting this treatment continuously that we're going to ignore the absolute discrimination that we find on a weekly basis towards it? And it's nothing like towards the really dark parts of this conversation, but there is a way that we frame people in this country that is not right. It's not right. And, the reason I feel so strongly about this is because I feel that it protects the validity of the game. If we're going to sit there, we're going to make lies about a player's ability to play through trouble. Bukayo Saka, of all people, we're going to accuse of limping. Come on. The kid that gets fouled the most, triple, double teamed, kicked to shit, by the way, and never retaliates. But mate, I'm telling you right now, there's going to be a day that he does, and the media will be there, and they will kill him for it. And
Yeah,
it's just it's beyond me. And the reason I feel so strongly about defending this boy is not just because he's an Arsenal man, which helps, but for God's sakes, he's the light of your country. He is somebody that is going to go and sit there and give you guys success on the international stage. This should be something that every single fan, by the way, is sitting there and praising. If it's Anthony Gordon, or if it's Phil Foden, or if it's Cole Palmer, I guarantee you a foul gets given in those situations. And it just simply never does. And so what is the benefit from Bukayo Saka, by the way, going down? What is the benefit now? Because he's not getting a card from it. So you want to push him towards being disingenuous? Is that the goal? Because if we're talking fair, he doesn't get the fair treatment. He doesn't get the fair due. And he's been a superstar for years, so I can't even say that he's just a youngster anymore. The last couple of years I used to say, look, he's still developing his star. The reason things will change when he gets his superstar tag, things will change. The referees will start to be a little bit more amenable to him. That's not been the case. And Arsenal have been good, have been great, in fact, this season. So I don't know how you feel about that. That's a heavy conversation that I think a lot of people want to avoid because it's an uncomfortable one. But I'm genuinely curious. Like, can I get an intellectual reason as to why Bukayo Saka, is forget the nomination for a second, but A is not given the credit he's deserved in this country, but B, why there seems to be this assassination from punditry to sit there and comment on Bukayo Saka limping when he's got literal holes in his shin and that's not being carded.
Yeah, I feel like we actually. I think it also comes down to, I'd say, aesthetic bias, and I say it because the way
Yep.
Bukayo plays is very much efficient and effective, and it's to the point, and that's why he gets the golden assist. But when you compare him to maybe Phil Foden, who's aesthetically more pleasing as a player, that's where I think people go, because he's more aesthetically pleasing, he's a better player, he's more talented. Because of the maybe way he glides with the ball and the way he's able to glide through spaces and turn on the half space. That's where I think is a massive part of Bukayo and versus maybe Phil Foden. And also the fact that Bukayo does a lot of dirty work, defensive work. I've got the stats here. In terms of tackles per 90, over the last 365 days, more than Trippier, more than Trent, more than Walker.
Mm-hmm.
Nearly
Yeah.
double of Kyle Walker, by the way. Nearly double of Kyle Walker. He's got more blocks than Trent and Walker as well. Slightly behind Trippier. And these are fullbacks. Their job is to defend. But Kyle's job is to defend, yet he gets back. And yet still, 16 goals this season? 7 assists? He's still up there as Arsenal's highest goal scorer of the team that's fighting for a title and might win a title. And yet still doesn't get nominated for the PFA Player of the Year. Which to me, that's the most crazy part, is you don't get a nomination. Yeah, Rodri as a defensive midfielder, even that's crazy in my eyes, but because he's a defensive midfielder, I think it's easy to forget about a player like that. But when you've got an attacker who scores the goals, who wins you the games, and you still don't give him the flowers, that's why I find it a bit confusing. There is actually a comment in the Arsenal fan base right now that maybe as Arsenal fans we're not giving Bukayo enough of, support in the media and the praise that he deserves to really push him forwards to get him into these conversations.
Mate, 8 goal and assists in 9 Champions League games. 25 goal and assists in 35 Premier League games. I don't know if people can do the math, but in terms of 44 league games, we are talking about right now 43 goal involvements. Like, it's just so it's just, sorry, not 43, 33 goal involvements in 44 games.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's ridiculous. It's elite.
That was his
It's
first ever
elite.
Champions League campaign.
First Champions League campaign. It's elite. And a lot of those goal and assists, by the way, he's probably one of the most influential players in our squad for taking a goal and assist at a 0-0 scoring line or behind. We don't do it often enough for it to be a very big time, but when we are at 0-0, those goals matter. He does them to win games. They're important goals. And yeah, mate, I really struggle with this discourse. I think that Bukayo deserves better. I think he deserves better from the general public media. And I don't need to hear you say that he's the best player in the world. I don't need to hear that. But what I need to hear is that we need to stop criticizing a player that has carried us from the dumps. He's allowed to have a bad game and we're allowed to critique him. Same time, those things can happen. We can ask for him to improve in certain areas, absolutely. But when you've got somebody that's producing elite output, somebody that's producing 3 times the defensive output of every single one of his competitors, he factually is doing 3 times more defensive work than Salah, Cole Palmer, Phil Foden. I urge people to just simply look up the numbers. It's simple to do. It's not hard. There's no makeup here. 3 times the defensive output of those players. And we don't platform him in the same way. There's some talks to be had. And I think to lastly end on the limping narrative, which I think is a really dangerous rhetoric. We as Arsenal fans should not be standing up for this. We as Arsenal fans should be sitting there and proudly claiming that Bukayo Saka has been somebody that has played very with integrity, very humble in his approach, and has done it for a while. So I think from an Arsenal perspective, we got to sit there and defend our player. We got to do it more And it doesn't mean that you just have to just give him awards because, um, he's somebody that faces this criticism. But I do think it's unfair, and I think it comes from discrimination bias. I can't sit there and not call a spade a spade. The framing of Bukayo Saka has been absolutely horrendous, and it just doesn't come from just the World Cup, by the way, and the stupid comments that he received. That's going to happen no matter what. In a big moment, that's going to happen. Let's put that to a side. You need to protect the stars of your Premier League, and you need to protect them the same way that you protect other stars. Don't give differential treatment.
Mhm. No, I agree. I agree. And I think in terms of defending him, I think it'll be very nice if we had maybe a medal and a title to defend him with, which might happen maybe next week. So we'll talk about that very, very soon. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching as always. Take care and peace.